Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel where we talk about true crime and mystery. We have cases that will make you cry, cases that will make you angry, and also cases that will make you want to punch somebody in the face. But most importantly, this is a channel where we talk about real crimes and real people. Please don't forget to subscribe and do those shenanigan things YouTube asks you to do. So today I bring you the story of Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper. This serial killer was such a media sensation that he became an inspiration for a series of movies worldwide famous, and that is Scream. Yes, the Gainesville Ripper was the inspiration for those movies. So let's see how things unfolded. Danny Harold Rolling was born on May 26, 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana. His parents were James and Claudia. James was a police officer, Claudia was 19 when she got married, and shortly after she became pregnant with Danny. But one person wasn't happy with this at all. Danny's father, James, didn't want to have children, so this news didn't bring him any joy. The first monster in Danny's life was actually his father. During his childhood and teenage years, Danny, his mother, and brother Kevin lived a nightmare at the hands of their father, who was violent and abusive. They endured years and years of violence. Claudia tried to leave James several times, but she always returned. Danny used music or art to escape the nightmare he lived at home. As a teenager and a young adult, Danny Rolling was no stranger to the authorities. He was arrested several times for robberies in Georgia, and he also got caught spying a woman getting dressed. Until the day he got caught, Danny Rolling was a career criminal who couldn't help himself, but things eventually would escalate and turn deadly. As an adult, Danny Rolling had trouble fitting into society, and he couldn't hold a job. Danny joined the Air Force, but eventually he got discharged because of drug use. Danny was also married. He had a daughter, but his wife separated from him when he threatened to kill her. To express his disappointment and anger, Danny assaulted a woman that looked like his ex-wife. On November 4th, 1989, Danny was fired from a job in Shreveport. Then he entered the home of a family of three, a father, a daughter, and a grandson, who were attacked by Danny. The daughter's body was mutilated, cleaned, and posed. Danny then broke into another man's house, stole some documents, and moved to Florida with a new identity, Michael Kennedy Jr. But Danny's life as a criminal didn't end there. He kept on robbing everywhere he went. In May 1990, during a family argument, Danny tried to kill his father, the monster. He shot him in the stomach and in the forehead, but the monster didn't die. James survived. He lost an eye and an ear, which never stopped him from beating his wife until the day she died. I wonder, if he had succeeded that day on killing his father, would it stop him from killing other victims, or was it just the beginning? In August 1990, Danny started his reign of terror in Gainesville, Florida, killing one student from Santa Fe College and 4 students from the University of Florida. On August 24th, 1990, Danny broke into an apartment of Sonia Larson and Christina Powell, both students. The girls were asleep, Sonia upstairs and Christina downstairs. After breaking into the apartment, Danny went upstairs first. He taped Sonia Larson's mouth, and as she tried to defend herself from the attacker, Sonia was stabbed to death. Danny then went downstairs. He taped Christina Powell's mouth. He bound her wrists behind her back. He cut her claws off. He assaulted her, and then he stabbed Christina 5 times in the back. Danny posed the bodies in a sexually provocative position. He took a shower and left the apartment. On August 25th, 1990, Danny broke into the apartment of Krista Hoyt, who was also a student. Krista wasn't there at the time, so he decided to wait. He had a goal. He was going to kill that night, and Krista was his chosen one. Danny waited in the living room until Krista returned. When she arrived, he placed her in a chokehold. He taped her mouth like the other victims. He bound her wrists. He took her to the bedroom, cut her clothes off. He assaulted her, and then he stabbed her in the back. Danny actually returned to the crime scene because he thought he had left his wallet there. And when he got there, he decapitated Krista and placed her head on a shelf facing the body. But this time, the murder became news sensation and students were extra cautious. It seems they knew they were being targeted by a murderer. One would assume the murders would cool off to take the attention out of it, but on August 27, 1990, Danny Rowling broke into the apartment of Tracy Powles and Manny Tabuada. Danny killed Manny first after a struggle. Then Tracy heard the noise coming from the bedroom. She went to Manny's bedroom to see what was going on. She saw Danny and she tried to barricade herself in her bedroom, but she didn't make it. Danny broke through the door, he subdued Tracy, and did his ritual. He taped her mouth, wrists, he cut off her clothes, he assaulted her, and then he stabbed her in the back. Police had several leads and some suspects, but none of them were Danny. Danny was on the loose, but not for long. Because the murder in Florida became a media sensation, authorities in Shreveport, Louisiana contacted authorities in Florida because they noticed the similarities between these murders and the family murder which had happened a year prior that hadn't been solved yet. Those similarities were opposing the victims, tape residue on the victims' bodies, and vinegar to clean the body. An investigator from Florida traveled to Shreveport to learn about the case and noticed, indeed, it had similarities with the murders in Florida. Testing from the body fluids showed the killer from Shreveport had type B blood. They also add other evidence collected from the crime scene, but nothing that would indicate Danny Rowling was the killer until a tip came from a resident from Shreveport called Crime Stoppers, and gave a tip. A guy she had met with her ex-husband could have been the killer. His name, Danny Rowling. The woman recounted Danny had told her ex-husband he liked to stick knives into people. So based on a hunch, she called Crime Stoppers, believing Danny Rowling could be the person who committed all of those crimes. My opinion, allegedly, Danny might have told him he killed the family in Shreveport. It's just an opinion, but it was great that she came forward. After this tip, authorities tried to find Danny Rowling, and what do you know? Danny had been arrested on September 7, 1990 because of a robbery he had committed. He was still doing his old tricks. They did a background check on him. He had multiple convictions for armed robbery. They speculated he might have robbed a bank on the day Krista Hoyt's body was found. The police went to the small camp Danny was living in. They found audio tapes, diaries, which contained Danny Rowling alluding to the crimes. They took his tools, which matched marks left at the crime scene. Authorities also determined Danny Rowling had type B blood. So in November 1990, Danny Rowling was charged with several counts of murder, but it would take a while to get to trial. 4 years later, the trial came, but Danny pleaded guilty before the trial began. His motive for the crimes? Be a superstar like Ted Bundy. What's most interesting is his victims looked like his mother. Was Danny taking revenge on the woman who didn't save Danny and his brother from their violent and abusive father? Before sentencing, Danny's mother gave a statement recounting all the abuse he suffered at the hands of James when Danny was younger. Psychiatrists stated Danny had antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and paraphilia. Also, a psychiatrist stated Danny's sadistic acts were driven by an alter ego personality named Gemini. On April 20th, 1994, Daniel Harold Rowling was sentenced to death. Before being executed, Danny took responsibility for the murders in Shreveport. He wrote a confession and an apology. Then on October 25th, 2006, Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper, was executed by lethal injection. The Gainesville serial killer murders were inspiration to a worldwide famous movie called Scream.